So this talk is going to be about feedback and rejection and how you can deal with those and expect to encounter those in this course. In this creative writing course, we'll be using the workshop style, which means that in your poetry section and in your fiction section, you'll write a series of poems or you'll write a short story and you'll post it and receive feedback from your peers in this class. You'll also receive feedback from me. In addition, you'll be giving feedback to your peers in this class. And I want to talk to you a little bit about that and what it means. So let me start by giving you a quick story. My first book, Blind Hunger, went through about 15 publishers before I got a contract. That means that I sent that book to 15 potential publishing houses and received rejections from each of them for a variety of reasons. And one of the things that I think my undergraduate and graduate creative writing work did for me was thicken my skin. And it's through these workshops that I was able to do that. So in my undergraduate and graduate work, I had multiple workshops for short stories and fiction, and I received feedback ranging from really kind feedback and polite kind of tiptoeing feedback to really scathing, tear it apart, literally red penned out every single line of my story except one paragraph. I received the full gamut of feedback that you could get in a creative writing course. And what that did was it taught me to separate my work from myself. Because inevitably, if you try to publish in this world, you will be rejected and you may receive some negative feedback. And a lot of that negative feedback actually comes after you get accepted into a publishing contract. So let me go back to my first book, getting about 15 rejections before I found a contract. Of those rejections, I had several form rejections, and typically that happens when a publishing house just doesn't see your book as fitting in with their brand, meaning you read the submission guidelines, you did everything you were supposed to do, but they looked at your book and they thought, well, it's not quite what we normally publish, so we don't think we can sell this. That's not personal, that's just you didn't make the product they want. They wanted apples, you sold them oranges. So several of them were that way. One of them came in 20 minutes after I sent them the full manuscript, which means that they didn't have time to read the manuscript. They just rejected it pretty much outright. And then I had a couple, I think two, that came back with really well thought out critiques. The person in charge of the publishing house or in charge of submissions read through the entire manuscript and gave me page by page detailed reasoning why they couldn't publish it and very kind suggestions for improving the manuscript, which I took, and eventually I found a publisher in Dark Moon Books. So I tell you this because I want you to realize that in the world of creative writing, in the world of any art, you will experience rejection. And the best thing that you can do here in this class is learn to separate yourself from your work. And what I mean by that is learn to separate your soul, your heart, the energy and time and creativity you put into your work. Compartmentalize that. Take it away from the work that you've created and look at the work itself as a product that can be shaped. Because I promise you the feedback that you get from your peers in this class can help improve your art. We do not write for ourselves. Writing does not exist in a vacuum. We write for an audience. We write so that somebody else can read it. And that audience has a say in what we choose to write. That is, we have to think about what their perspective is going to be when they sit down to read it. And if they tell us, well, I took it this way and it wasn't how you intended it, you really need to change that. Because otherwise the audience isn't going to get what you want them to get out of your work. So, compartmentalize yourself from your work. Thicken up for rejection, and then let's talk about feedback. So, back to my first book. We'll start with that one. So, I said that your negative feedback is probably going to be worst after you get the publishing contract. Here's what I mean by that. My first book, I got a publishing contract, and I had, I think, 3 editors. So, typically a book will go through 2 or 3 editors before it gets published. My last book had like 6 or 7. So yeah, 2 or 3, 6 or 7, somewhere in there. And you have to have an editor. No matter how good you are, you will have mistakes. On page 12, you will say her hair was brown, and on page 58, you'll say her hair was green. And somebody has to catch that because your readers definitely will. So you want your editors to catch it before it goes to press. So you absolutely have to have editors. And editors do more than just correct your grammar like your high school English teacher did. They're going to look at your style, your voice, look at consistency, look at your analogies. They're going to make sure that everything makes sense from the perspective of the people they know they sell their books to. So you really need to listen to your editors. Now, having said that, my first book, the first editor that I worked with, hated adverbs, and I can completely understand that. If you've already watched the showing versus telling lecture, you know that adverbs are telling. They are not showing, and so they really kind of detract from your story. Well, I had stripped out a lot of adverbs from my first revision of my book, so I was surprised when she caught, 5 or 6 more. And the first one, bear in mind, this is a 300-page book, so she's caught, only about 6 adverbs. The first one she says, get rid of your adverbs, crosses it out. The second one she says, adverb, crosses it out. By the time I get to the 4th adverb in my book, she starts writing in the comments, ARG! And get rid of these! Exclamation point, all caps. So what I learned from that was not all editors are very good at being kind with the way that they deliver their feedback. They get frustrated, and sometimes it shows in their comments. In my last book, I think I said 6 or 7 editors. One of them we hired before we sent the book to a publisher, and then the rest were from the publisher. And that publishing house was actually really quite good. They let us hold on to a lot of our artistic vision, but they still insisted that we changed quite a bit of our story, particularly where we made references to like actual brands in the real world. They wanted us to change those to made-up brands. So my point is, no matter how good your story is, even if you get a publisher, you're still going to have to make revisions and you're still going to get feedback. Having said that, you're going to be giving and receiving feedback in this course. And when you give and receive feedback, that opens up a channel of potential sensitivity on both sides. You could be sensitive about the feedback you gave. You could be sensitive about the feedback you receive. For example, just yesterday, I was editing a report from someone else that I work with, and she's also a writer, and I found one sentence that I found to be redundant, and that's it. That's all I wanted her to cut from the report. And she said, I don't think it's redundant, I'm not going to cut it. And I said, I really think you should. And she said, no. And I felt myself kind of prickle because I realized, why is she not listening to me? It is redundant. I know what I'm talking about. And I had to remember, she is the creator of this document, not me. And if she says that it's not redundant, at the end of the day, I have to let her have her piece. So when you're giving feedback, remember, you don't know it all. The artist is the one who has the final say about what goes into their document, to their prose, to their poetry, whatever it is you're giving them feedback on. Don't take it personally if they don't listen to you. Having said that, I strongly encourage you to listen to your audience. If you receive feedback that they say something isn't working, this metaphor is mixed up, it's confusing, I don't have a really clear picture in my head, I don't know what this means. If they say something to that effect, you should be listening, because those are things that can make or break a story or a poem. So, my final thoughts on giving feedback. Make sure that you are kind. Provide some positive. No matter what, you need to find a positive with that story, even if it's just one moment, one scene. And the reason for that is, as a writer, I'm not going to take editing criticism from anyone who doesn't at least get what I'm trying to do. And if they can at least say, I see what you're trying to do here, and reasonably convince me that they understand my aim, my point, my artistic vision, then good. If they can do that, then I know that whatever feedback they've given me is legitimate and will actually help me improve my work. However, if they can't find a good thing about my work, if they can't clearly understand what my aim is, then any feedback they give me isn't going to help me grow. So, when you look at your peer's work, you need to find something you like about it and try to articulate to your peer that you understand what they're aiming for. That is how they will know that your feedback is legitimate for them. In addition, if somebody says something to you on your prose or your poetry that upsets you or makes you prickle, take a breath and step back, because that information is still valuable. And You may feel like it's not valuable because it's made you angry, and there have been many occasions where I have received editing notes and I was like, they don't know what they're talking about, and then I had to set it aside, and 3 days later I go, they're right, I need to change that. So take a breath, step back, and then go look at it objectively, because chances are that criticism was not meant to hurt you, it was meant to help you. So toughen up, get ready for rejection, give good feedback. That's my advice.